got a good crowd. I do know we probably ran out of food. I hope everybody got something. That's all I got, preacher. That's all I got. You'll have to listen intently. Let me check this thing. Yeah, that's volume max. Appreciate the crowd coming. We'll try to plan a little better next month and have a few more groceries. I'll start with a quick story about some of my friends. Seems a buddy of mine's wife had passed out. Didn't know she had a heart attack or a stroke, but she was unconscious. And he called 911, which was the only thing he knew to do. And the operator, he told her what the problem was. Said, my wife's passed out, can't get her to wake up. She said, well, where you at? He said, I'm at 927 Eucalyptus Street. And the 911 operator said, spell that for me. He sat there just a minute. He said, well, hold on, I'm going to drag her over to Pine and I'll call you right back. That's my buddies there. That's my buddies. April's been a pretty tough month for me. We've been just extremely busy, and I didn't really have much to talk about early this week. Not early this month, but early this week. So we've kind of crammed this together quickly. And I was going to talk about diversity, inclusion, and equity, or whatever that mess is you hear on the TV so much, because everybody else talking about it. I figured that'd be easy to talk about, but we're going to mostly talk about diversity tonight, not that other stuff. But when you don't have much to talk about and you can't figure out what to talk about, you go back to your roots and you talk about what you know. So mostly what I know is about fishing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about fishing line, and then we're going to try to figure out how to tie that to a devotion in the church. But basically, there are three kinds of fishing lines, but I'm going to talk about two of them tonight: monofilament and braid. Monofilament was invented by DuPont in 1937. It pretty well revolutionized the fishing industry because of the variety of gauges of sizes. You could panfish with it, you could marlin fish with it. There's good attributes of monofilament and bad attributes of monofilament. It is virtually transparent. You really can't see it in the water, which is good if you're trying to catch fish. Fish can't see it. It's bad if you're running trolling rigs and trying to see where it's going in the water to keep two lines from crossing. Fishermen can't see it either. It actually's got a lot of stretch. That's a good thing. It pulls and gives, and it holds fish on line much better. When you're heavy-handed like I am, you pull hooks out of fish's mouth, so if it stretches, that's actually a good thing. It can be a bad thing. If it stretches, you can't get a good hook set. You just that stretch allows that line to give, and you don't get the hook in the fish properly, and the fish come off. So if you don't get it in good, it'll come off. If you get it in too good and the line stretches, you can pull it off. So monofilament has had its place in the world, but it's dated. It's been out a long time. It also has a problem with memory, and this is a big piece of monofilament. Brought a big piece so I can see it and you can see it. But see that slinky? That's what we call memory. And that's not good. You can't cast it very far. If it's laying on top of the water and you try to set a hook, you're going to pull this out before you get the line tight enough to set a hook. It really is not good for fishing except for maybe trolling. It took me several years to buy into the braid. I'm going to start braid fishing. But probably at least 3/4 of my fishing today is done with braid. The only time I use monofilament is when I'm trolling. It is good and bad. It's got its own place in the world. Let me see what you got there, Mr. Jerry. This is some lighter monofilament, but you can still see even the small stuff has memory. It is stiff. It's not castable. It's not pliable. All right, my trusted assistant here, Mr. Jerry. That's a piece of braid. Braid is just limp. It will hang loosely, but it is strong. That is the same diameter as 20, 30 pound monofilament, but that's probably 50 to 75 pound braid. It's strong. Monofilament, mono means one. There's no help. Once that one breaks, it's done. Braid is an inclusion of several strands of line. It's woven together. If one strand's weak, it's got more strands to hold. If one strand gets cut on oyster shell, there's more to that than one strand. So braid is stronger. Bad thing about braid is it doesn't stretch. The good thing about braid is it doesn't stretch. It's kind of bad, ain't it? When you're heavy-handed like me and you got a big 7-foot rod and your line don't stretch, when I set the hook on a fish, fish is going to move. I'm going to pull his head off. I'm going to break the line and braid will not break. Or I'm going to break my fishing rod or my wrist. Something's going to happen. Sometimes it's not bad. Braid is very sensitive. Since it does not stretch, you can feel everything you touch with that weight. If you're fishing like a Carolina rig or something with a weight on the bottom, I've been told you could drag it across a can in 30 foot of water and distinguish if it was a Pepsi can or a Diet Coke. It's good line at its purpose. If I ask you tonight, are you more like monofilament or braid? Just kind of think through that. Are you like monofilament? Do you prefer to stand alone? Do you stretch at times or bend just to hold on to a relationship? Do you feel like you may snap at times when under stress? Do you have memory, good memory or bad memory? Can you forgive people easily, or does the memory prevent you from forgetting? Or are you more like braid? Do you feel more woven into a group of people that are like you? Do you pull your own weight with the group? Do you depend on the group around you for strength? Do you expect them to pick up the slack when you can't? Are you strong and nearly unbreakable? Does stress just not seem to affect you at all? Do you have no memory, just letting things go like water off a duck's back? That's how braid is. So what I would like to figure out is how to take the characteristics of both those fishing lines and mesh them together into one to have really strong but sensitive line, able to stand alone or fit into a group. Even if it's stretched, have no stress, no memory of bad, but never forget the good, and never, ever, ever fail or snap. That would be the perfect fishing line. That would also be the perfect person, the perfect father, the perfect Christian, just a perfect person all around, if you could put those attributes into one person. And I said if we could do that, we wouldn't need as many churches. And that sounds kind of like an oxymoron. Perfect people don't need as many churches. If church people could get along better, we would need less churches. My son and I were traveling to one of the kids' ball games, and we were going up 55 Highway toward Copes, and they were building a new church, and my son, the oldest son's a preacher, and I thought he'd be pretty happy. I said, look, buddy, they're building a new church. He said, it's crying shame. I said, what's wrong with a new church? He said, Daddy's church down the road about 2 miles. We just passed it. There's another one up here on the left. Ain't neither one of them full of people. Think about that. If we had perfect Christians, we could get by with a third of the churches. But it does take diversity, and that's kind of where I want to go with this thing. To be successful, you got to be diverse, but you all got to be in one accord. That's back in the first chapter of Acts, where the disciples were getting together and trying to build the church, and they said the Holy Spirit didn't come down upon them until they were all in one accord. All in one accord. These were the same guys that had walked with Jesus for 3.5 years and listened to him preach, watched him raise people from the dead, heal the sick, and they finally got in one accord after Jesus was crucified. Jesus picked 12 disciples. When we talk about diversity, there were at least 5 of them fishermen. There was a tax collector, CPA, a physician, a businessman or 2, and a couple that I couldn't really find what their duties were before he picked them, but a diverse crowd, if there's been one. He picked them all in their own time, a very unique crowd. They had their attributes, as we've talked about. The fishing line has its attributes, good and bad. He knew beforehand what they were going to do when he picked them. He knew he'd be betrayed. He knew he'd be denied. Didn't keep him from picking the group that he picked. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Just think about this. I'd ask you, do you know a boy or a man named John? But we got Johns in the building tonight, so I know you do. How about somebody named Matthew? I got a good friend named Matthew. Had cancer. We've all been praying for him. He's doing really good. Thank you for your prayers. Luke's another name, real popular. We all know Luke's. Peter, probably know a few Peters. Thomas. I know there's at least 2 Phillips in the room tonight. Philip's a popular name. Paul is another popular name. If I ask you, did you know somebody? You say, yeah, I know a lot of guys with those names. Anybody know anybody named Judas? I don't know a soul. The only person I've ever heard named Judas, and that wasn't a person. We were watching some movie on TV, and this guy was like a bounty hunter or something, and he had a big old mean pit bulldog, and the dog's name was Judas. I think the name alone scared people half to death. But there's nobody named Judas, but Jesus picked 2 disciples named Judas. Judas Iscariot and Judas the son of James. I thought that was odd with all the people, but that tells you how diverse the crowd was that he picked. I'm going to talk more about Judas than anybody else because I think there's 2 lessons to be learned. First off, last month we talked about the Bible and how accurate it is and how it never contradicts itself. Judas had to be picked so that the scriptures could be fulfilled because the prophecies were that Judas or Jesus would be betrayed, sold for 30 pieces of silver. First reason, he had to be picked so Jesus could be betrayed through the prophecy. The second reason I think he was picked was a lesson for all of us. This Bible that I talk about a lot, there's just so many little minor lessons that I miss and we all probably miss, but when you really look at it, Judas wasn't a bad person. He was a pretty good guy. He was trusted with the treasury. He kept the money for the disciples. He was trusted by his peers because at the Lord's Supper table, the Last Supper, Jesus told them, somebody's going to betray me. One of the 12 will betray me. John chapter 6 verse 7, he said, Jesus said, did I not choose 12, but one of you is a demon. This was said before the betrayal. He knew the future. He knew what was going to happen. John 6:64 says, but there are some of you who do not believe. I don't think Judas was saved. I think he was the person that Jesus was referring to when he said, some of you do not believe. Again, this was before the betrayal, before any of this happened. But all in all, he was a good guy. At the Last Supper there, when Jesus said, one of you will betray me, you know, a lot of them say, is it I, is it I, is it I? Nobody said, I bet it's Judas. They all trusted Judas. They didn't have anything negative to say about him. So all in all, I think Judas was a good person. The lesson that I think this is trying to show us, I got a lot of good friends that are good people. I mean, really good people. Help everybody, good people. I'm not sure they're good Christians. They're good, but they're not godly. I think this lesson here is put in this place for us to see. You can be good, but not be saved. You may not be one of the believers. So that in itself is the second reason I think Jesus picked Judas. I think if you were at the table that night or in the group and said, Judas, are you saved? And he'd say, I was one of the chosen 12. You say, but Judas, are you saved? He'd say, I was trusted with the treasury of all the disciples. I kept the money. I said, Judas, but are you saved? He said, I was a charter member of the Church of Jesus Christ. first member. But Judas, are you saved? Remember John 6:64. There are some of you who do not believe. And this thing just went back to the top. Hold on. It just went away. Anyway, in closing, because this thing just quit, but I was winding down. If I asked you tonight, are you saved? Would you say, yeah, I'm a good person? Or, hey, I teach Sunday school. I sing in the choir. I play the bass guitar for the praise team. Are you saved? Good people, and these are the hardest people. I've talked to Wesley about a friend of mine trying to reach him. He said, look, good people are the hardest people in the world to reach because they don't think they're bad. They don't see a reason to turn to God and to accept Him. But that's the purpose of Jesus picking Judas, I think, was so we would have that opportunity to learn before we go too far. You know, we can be good, but we got to be godly. We got to be saved. We got to be a believer. So, I think the bottom line is tonight, are you saved? And are your friends saved? Is your family saved? And the things that we go through daily that stretch us and stress us, you know, we need to be more like that braid fishing line and not have that memory that we got to forgive and forget when bad things happen. And we got to be godly. But that's all I got tonight, because I had a line or two more, but I was getting in the short rows. But I'm sorry, this thing just absolutely went off. But I thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate you putting up with me, and we will have more food next month. Please come again every 30 days. Next month will be Memorial Day. We do have this on Memorial Day. When you get back from the beach, we might have hot dogs, hamburgers, but we'll have something, dinner, we'll have this same setup. So come again, bring a friend, and we will see you next month.
Soundstripe.